Hello and welcome to the On Pause podcast. I'm your host, Karen Williams, and today we have with us Netta Dobbins. And Netta is the founder and CEO of Mimconnect. Hey, Netta.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So glad you could be here. I'm really excited to talk about what I got planned for us today. I know a lot about Mimconnect because we actually had very similar businesses. I ran a tech recruiting company, but Netta, it started off as a media recruiting company or a media community.
Yeah.
So that's what I kind of want to talk about, how you spun this community, where did it come from, and how did you then monetize it to become this big business that you have created. So first I want to start off with, what problem does your company solve?
So the problem we're solving is both a personal problem that I was facing at the moment and then a real world problem. Diversity is a problem that people are just now understanding is a problem, right? So essentially the goal of Mimconnect is to help create access to opportunity for previously marginalized communities. So Black, Brown, Asian, Hispanic, Latinx, et cetera. We aim to give them opportunities to jobs and then opportunities to connect with each other as well.
Okay. So you thinking about that, how did you, you were working in corporate America in New York City, I would think of every girl's dream job, like they said in the Devil Wears Prada, every girl's dream job, right? Yeah. So how did you go from every girl's dream job to starting Mimconnect?
It was an accident. So I'm from Nashville. I think that's important for everybody to know. I'm from Nashville. I got a degree in PR. Moved to New York City. Thought I wanted to work in entertainment, right? Mm-hmm. So of course I'm like, Devil Wears Prada. I'm ready to be somebody's assistant, out here running, doing all this. And I did that for a year and a half. And I was like, this ain't it. This is not me. I don't want to just sit here and do the same thing every day. I worked in entertainment PR. I don't know if I said that.
Okay.
So after that, I was like, I want to be more creative. And I transitioned into advertising, where I was a strategist, doing social media stuff, working on some amazing accounts from State Farm to Nike to the NFL, et cetera. But still, I was like, okay, something's off, right? And I realized it was because I didn't have a real community. A professional community at that. And a professional community of people who also had my background was what I was missing, especially when I worked in PR. I always found myself as the only person of color. Sometimes working in advertising, I'm the only woman in the room, right? And this is normal. I mean, it's normal. It shouldn't be, but it happens. So in an effort to really start creating community, I launched a group chat that I called Minorities in Media Connect. In 2 weeks, this group chat had over 300 people all saying, I'm also the only person of color at my company. I'm looking for a job at this company. I need help because my boss said this crazy thing to me. How do I address it, et cetera, et cetera. And that's when I realized that, clearly there's an opportunity and a need to build out a platform for people to connect with each other and then, once again, access different job opportunities. So that's the genesis of it.
Right.
And then I started kind of building onto that based on what the community was wanting and what employers were kind of looking for as well.
So I'm glad you said that, employees. So you built this community and off of a need for yourself, and it grew into this massive community. When did you know, I can monetize this, or I can turn this community into a business?
Yeah. When companies started coming to me and they were like, hey, do you want to do XYZ? And I'm like, what? I had built a community of people who were going to their company saying, yo, have you heard about Mimconnect? They have thousands of people we're looking to hire. I want more Black people here too, so why don't you go work with them, right? So when companies started reaching out to me, that kind of put the stamp of approval on it, people need this. It's not just a community, but there's an opportunity to sell talent in a sense to companies as well. Yeah.
So originally you never even thought about, this will turn into a business.
No, I've never wanted to start a business. I didn't think that I would. I thought I would work in entertainment and marketing and media my whole life. But
right. So when you got your first client, do you remember that first client?
I think it was an advertising agency. I think.
Okay. But, and so how did you land that first client? Was it word of mouth or somebody in the community? Or?
Yeah. So here's the thing about building a community first product is that you build evangelists, people who go and speak on you and your company on behalf of you. And because we were media focused, these people knew how to talk to people, right? They were journalists, they were publicists, they were advertisers, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, we definitely grew via word of mouth, and we've always only really grown via word of mouth.
Wow, that's awesome. So it started, you were at work and you were needing a community, you built this community. The community then goes to their job and say, hey, this company exists to bring more people like me into the building. You need to work with them. So now they're working with you. So in what capacity did you start to work with them? I know you've done recruiting, you've done like events for them, you've done a lot of different things. What do you think has been your like most profitable thing of working with companies?
Yeah, so I'll start from the beginning. So once again, companies are coming to me, they're like, we want to work together. And as somebody who never wanted to start a business, didn't have a business bone in them, I'm like, okay, we can do something, right? So we started with events because I knew that I could get the community to come out. And I was like, hey, just show up at this event. You can recruit or have a table there and say 30 seconds about who you are or whatever. Cool. From there, they started saying, oh, do you have like a job board that we can post on? I was like, yeah. Didn't have one. Went on Squarespace and created one. Right. And then from there, I looked at like Indeed, LinkedIn, and just other diversity platforms to say, okay, how much are they charging, and what's kind of competitive? So we started doing job boards. Then we started getting more like mid-level senior roles, and those type of people job hunt differently, as you know, right? So with that, it's a lot of like poaching people from other companies, and we tried out the recruiting agency model, which I didn't like. I've also never been a recruiter, so I was like, I'm trying to figure this out. Right. But essentially, like to wrap all that up, I kind of moved in a way that my clients wanted me to move, or like what they were asking. I was like, okay, let me try it out. And then when things didn't work, i.e. the recruiting agency aspect, I just scaled back. We're not doing that anymore. We tried it. It wasn't successful. We're just going to do this far. I would say the thing that's been most successful and what I enjoy now is just the job board. And then as far as events, we just do like one annual event now. It's our annual conference. So yeah, it's manageable. Right. I like making it manageable.
Right. So I think that's key though with any business is like you test stuff out or your customer. So me, I hate sales. I don't want to go out and try to sell you on what I have. I like you to have the problem and then you come to me with it, right? And then I can create something around. I think a lot of times we go out and we just create stuff that we think we need or we think people want and they don't want it. Right. So I think the way you built it was very smart because you were able to deliver what they needed versus kind of coming up with some on your own.
Yeah, but that's tricky too because sometimes clients think they need something. Oh, yes. And they're like, yeah. And then I go build it. And then they're like, oh, well, actually, one, we don't have budget for it. And two, we don't need it as much as we thought we did. So now I'm wasting my time.
Exactly.
So what I've learned too with that is like, you got to stay in what you know you're good at too. And people are going to request things all day. It doesn't mean that you have to build it.
Right. So. That's good. I think that's key too. But when I started my company, that was one thing was, I thought I was going to be doing direct placement, like going to find somebody, getting them to the client, cut me a check. But the first client, the first thing they asked for was, could I do contract work? And I was like, sure I can. I had no idea that now I'm the employer. I've got to do all these things. And so, yes, it was lucrative and it was very good. And I think contract work is good. But, you know, it was a lot to learn and kind of put together. So when you're thinking about building a community to then turn into a business or monetize. So think about people that I guess like coaches or something like that, like they're building this community to then maybe sell them a product or service. So what do you think about that process? Is like creating this community to then be your customer. So have you kind of dealt with that a little bit?
Yeah, we play with that for a little while. I think it's smart. I always, and with any entrepreneurs I talk to, I'm like, you have to build community around your product, around your service too, because one is going to help with marketing, and then two, it's just smart. That's the way that you get it out in front of a lot of people. In terms of using a community to then become your customers, when 2020 hit, before 2020 we were doing a lot of in-person events, right? 2020 hit. I mean, what's 2020? Yeah, 2020 COVID. I was like, I don't know what year it is.
Right.
COVID hit in 2020. We couldn't go outside anymore. So we started monetizing our community and saying, hey, we're going to have weekly digital events, but you guys have to contribute something in order for us to keep this going, right?
Okay.
It made sense because we were doing the same thing that we were doing in person. Online, they had more access to it, and it was higher quality people, essentially. Okay. So that's kind of the way that I did it. The same thing is that the same way that I did it with companies. It's like, what are you looking for? Where are your gaps? And then we brought in those people for that too.
Okay, so I have two questions came up when you were talking. Yeah. One, so say I'm starting out, right? I have no community. And like you though, you were looking for people that were like you, right? Is that necessarily what you would say? Like for me thinking, okay, I want to build a community around this podcast or, you know, around a new product or something. And you already have marketing and PR background. So how would you say, as a person that has no following or no community right now, how do you go out and build one around something that you're trying to create?
Yeah. The first thing I'm going to say is that, like, don't always focus on people like you, because your friends and family, once again, a lot of people say this, but they may not be your target audience, right? And for those that don't know, target audience is the people who are going to buy your product, the people who you're marketing to, essentially. I always tell people to like start by really understanding who they're trying to attract. What do they look like? What do they do? Where do they live? How much do they make? Why are they interested, right? So something like this would be great for entrepreneurs, especially our episode, right? So like, what are entrepreneur organizations that are already out there that you could be a part of, that you can start spreading the word about, right? Two, I think people try to monetize too early. So what are freebies that you can give away, right? People follow things and they come to different places for product, service, education, right?
Service, education, okay.
This is a product, but we don't have anything out there yet, right? So what are like educational points or tidbits that you can put out on social media to get them coming back? How do you hook them, essentially? So understanding like your hook is super important. Okay. And then three, like being comfortable talking about it. I feel like as women entrepreneurs, we don't want to talk about stuff until it's like final, it's pretty, we got the package on it.
Nobody knows about this podcast, okay?
Exactly.
The people that's gonna be talking.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
And like that puts you kind of behind, right? Like you don't, you can just go out and have a conversation with women. Hey, I'm starting a podcast on blah blah blah. Right. Yeah. They'll likely get excited about it. When is it coming out? Put me on your mailing list. Right. Mailing list is important too. Social media is important, but I always like to own the data because
we can get into a whole. I've always said like, because back in the day I periscoped. You know what periscope is?
Yeah, I remember.
Okay. So I was heavy in Periscope. I'm talking about my mugs had little hearts on it. Okay. So the mailing list, though, I always used to say that your email address is like your digital currency because that belongs to you and that you can turn into money. So I totally agree. I love taking people off social media and putting them into a email list. That way you can continue to market to them.
Right.
When social media
disappears and stuff.
Oh, right. Like Instagram shut down not too long ago, right? People going
Twitter,
crazy.
we don't know what's happening with Twitter, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know I cut you off in the middle of your thought. You were talking about the ways to kind of build that community. And so I know definitely understanding their target market, knowing who they are, what they look like, kind of building an avatar and that you can look at and kind of talk to when you're creating your content. But when you think about creating content and building this community, I'm pretty sure I already know the answer, but what are you going to say is most important? Is it like going live, or is it just creating reels, or is it just doing some videos out there? What do you think is most effective in like getting people's attention to see it? Because, you know, we only got like 5 seconds now.
Right.
So what do you think is the best way?
I think it's a mixture of everything, but overall it's consistency. Right? Because you can post an amazing video, you get 10,000 views on it, and then tomorrow you're like, oh, I'm tired, I'm not going to do anything. Right. And then you post again maybe a week later and it drops because of the algorithm, because we don't know what's happening, right? Right. So at the end of the day, it's consistency. Video content is going to do very well, especially on Instagram. I'm just not going to talk about Twitter because I don't know what's happening with that. And then people really underutilize LinkedIn. Depending on your audience, right? So Mimconnect we focus on professionals. And we're professionals on LinkedIn, right?
Yes.
So I actually started putting a lot of blog content on LinkedIn. I started a LinkedIn newsletter all around diversity, equity, inclusion, around job hunting, around career mapping, et cetera, et cetera. And that helps establish yourself as a thought leader, which I think people also don't do, right?
Right.
In order for people to trust you, I have to see what you've done in the past. And you may not have done anything in the past, but act like you have or write a blog about what you know, right?
Right.
It's a lot of fake it till you make it. I feel like
it
people don't understand that aspect of it. But yeah, it's consistency at the end of the day. Put out content, be consistent with it. You'll get the views, you'll get the eyes.
I love that consistency. True. And it's kind of the hardest thing to do, right? I think, and I want to say that I think consistency is hard to do when you feel like you've been consistent and nobody's showing up and nothing's happening. And in social media just takes time because there's so many people creating content and everybody wants to be seen. But when you've done it for like a month, I know a month is not long enough, but you think you didn't posted your content for a couple of weeks and you're like, nobody signed up for my newsletter, and then that's when I think it kind of falls off. That's,
I
I
think it's important to also get off social media too, right? Because we have to realize that now people want to be in person. So get out, meet people, go to conferences, try to speak at conferences, share your username wherever you can on different platforms too, to root people back to the main one that you're focusing on. And then if you've done a month of content and nothing has worked, what do we need to change? Right?
Yeah.
You have to be comfortable with failing and reiterating until you get it right too.
Oh, I love that. Because now everyone has all these algorithms or analytics if you have like their business pages, and so you can go in and see what are people actually attracted to. I think that's really good. Okay, so let's shift it, because On Pause is really about like how do we mix business with like our wellness and self-care and all those things. And I know with social media, everybody's sharing their highlight reel. What's going on, what conference they at, where they speaking at, and all these things. Like, how do you stay focused though? Like, how do you, because you're a social person, I know, right? And so how do you stay focused on Netta and building what you're building and whatever is next, and not get distracted by somebody that you know that's doing X, Y, and Z?
Yeah. It's a challenge, right? And starting with me too. Everybody thinks that I'm social and I be out. I do be out. I be outside. But I also have my times where I'm just like, I don't want to deal with nobody.
Right.
I'm a Cancer. I go back into my show. I don't want to talk to anybody, right? I think in order to stay focused, I mute people. Like, you could be my best friend, but like you giving me anxiety right now, so I'm gonna mute you, right? And that's not me unfollowing, then it's just me taking a pause.
Okay, a pause.
Right? So I mute people, especially like competitors and things like that. And I also have an assistant that does my competitive research, right?
Okay.
When I was in it all day, I was like, oh no, this company just did this, and I'm so behind, and it's just not real. The first to market or the first to do something isn't always the best, right? But you do have to be aware of what your competitors are doing. So I do have my assistant that kind of looks into that stuff. She'll give me like a highlight reel. If I need more information, I can click the links and go into it. But it's not something that I have to be involved on daily, right?
Okay.
And then 2, journaling. When I feel overwhelmed or like I'm behind, like why? What is it? Am I really behind, or am I just jealous? Because jealousy is a thing. Or am I just anxious, right? So, I don't know. I think it's a lot of self-reflection that you have to do. And you just have to really be aware of yourself, too. And understand that, like, you're doing what God wants you to do. You're on your own path. On your own timeline. And you have to be comfortable with that.
I love that. You know what? Sometimes I think, well, she's not worried about that, because you see them doing all the things, and I'm like, and then you also have to think about how long other people have been doing it. Like, how long have you had Mimconnect?
It's been like 6 years.
6 years.
Yeah.
I had Mintech agency for maybe 3, and I'm like, well, what is she doing that I'm not doing? I'm like, y'all need to be looking through all these socials and figuring out, like, what are we missing? And so I think it's not even necessarily what are you missing. It's more so like what was meant for that person in that path. everybody's not going down the same path. I don't care if you're doing the same thing. The path is different because you're different people. You're living different experiences. Mm-hmm. So I think that's so important that you said that.
It's also about relationships too. Like everybody doesn't have the same relationships. Mm-hmm. Had I not went to New York and worked in media and started something media focused, it would not have existed, right? It would not have been the same if I did it here. So I think that's important too. Like just the opportunities that some people have, put them like at a higher rate to succeed or giving greater opportunity too. So.
And they always say comparison is, the thief of your joy. Do you think so?
Yes.
That was sweet. Yes,
absolutely. You cannot absolutely. I don't even I feel like, especially this year too, you can look at me and be like, no, that's so successful. And I look at me and be like, what's happening, right?
Yeah.
And this year has been hard because it's I feel like I'm in a transition. Mm-hmm. So it's do I still want to do this? Is it still my baby, the love of my life? Do I want to transition into something else? So it's been a lot of me questioning what's happening next. And then if Mimconnect does go away or get sold or whatever, what does that mean for me? For you, right?
Who do you become if you're no longer CEO
founder?
Mimconnect?
Yeah, right. But I've also been having conversations about it. I have a job. I'm doing Mimconnect. I have a job, still in the same kind of area of diversity, and it's continually having conversations with myself. You're doing what you want to do still, right? You couldn't have gotten this opportunity had you not done
exactly,
right?
Right.
And that entrepreneurship isn't the only thing. You don't have to be an entrepreneur till you die. This shit is hard.
Right.
It's a lot of mental stress, a lot of emotional stress. You lose friends, you strain family, right? You pause on your life things that you really want because you got to worry about this.
Yes.
So I really think, if we talk about comparison, I'm fuck that. I'm focused on me right now and what I want and what I see for my life. And if somebody has anything negative to say about it, whatever.
Right. I love that. And then that was another thing was pivoting. When you been Mimconnect so long, I remember seeing you in media. I was like, this child is everywhere. And what did you do something MTV or something?
I had a BT commercial.
BT she everywhere, and I'm like, so when you're thinking about pivoting to something different, how do you deal with the people, not people like me or somebody that you don't really deal with every single day, but your parents and the people that are closest to you, and what are they gonna think or what are they gonna say?
Yeah, I was really worried about that. I was you're gonna think that I failed, and I didn't.
Right.
Y'all didn't do this. Y'all didn't make a $500,000 company. I did that, right? So now, having conversation with my parents. One, they never knew what I did anyway. They didn't know what I did when I graduated. They didn't know why I was in New York. They didn't understand the company. So I'm just I got money. I'm good. I can help myself. I can sustain myself. But I'm about to do X, Y, Z. And I think because I've been able to go to New York City. I had never been to New York City before I moved there.
Wow.
Right? So being able to take that leap and survive, being able to start my own company and survive, I think it makes them feel like I'm safe. I think because your parents always want you to be safe. And they want you to be able to take care of yourself. So I feel because I've been able to do all that, I've shown them that I can do whatever I set my mind to. So they've been kind of lax as I do my little transitions. And then I have amazing friends that support me.
That's good.
So I think your tribe is important too, especially when you're thinking about pivoting and transitioning. So yeah.
All right. So we're going to ask you a question that's in our cards. Okay. You're going to pull a card and you're going to answer the card. Okay. So as I'm getting the cards ready, what's next for Netta?
That's a big question. What's
It doesn't have to be work. It could be, are you going on a vacation? Because she stays in Mexico. Okay?
I'm actually going to Mexico next week.
Look.
I love Mexico. Yeah, so I'm going to be traveling.
Okay.
Working. I'm trying to figure out what type of working I'm going to be doing, right? So that's in the air.
Okay.
And yeah, living.
Hey, You can't complain about that. Come on, pull a card.
Pull a card and a card. Do I read it?
Yes. What does it say? I hope it's a good card.
Oh.
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 Oh. What does it say?
What are you doing to become the person you want to be?
Oh.
This is a very heartfelt question. I feel like it's a great transition too.
It
Well, not
is.
really a transition. It's like right
Yeah.
into there. Breathing. Being patient. Praying. I think at the end of the day, it takes a lot as a woman who's an entrepreneur who's doing all these things to like pause again and really figure out what do you want for your life. Like this company is not your life. It doesn't have to be your life for the rest of your life, right?
Right.
I'm 30. I just turned 30. So it's like I'm putting my big girl pants on, right? I want to start a family. I want to get a big house. I want to do all this stuff. And does me working these crazy hours doing my own company allow me to do that and transition into this next part of my personal life, right? So a lot of deep reflections, a lot of letting go of different aspects of the company, different aspects of what I've been doing personally and all that too. So,
But one thing, congratulations that like to grow. You're 30 years old. You grew a $500,000 company by yourself, but of course with your community, but to think on your own, just out of a necessity that you wanted for yourself to grow this and do these things. I'm proud of you, and I'm happy to say you're my friend. And so guys, thank you so much. We have Netta Dobbins. Is there anything you got going on that you want to share? Oh, talk to us, honey.
yeah, I got a lot going on still.
Come on.
I'm letting go, but we still got a lot going on. So February 2023, February 21st, is going to be our annual conference. It's going to be completely virtual. It's called In Good Company. We're having it in partnership with the White House and their initiative on HBCUs. And it's a great opportunity for recent graduates, recent graduates, emerging graduates, entry-level people to come out, meet with some amazing media companies and beyond to get opportunities to intern or entry-level, et cetera, et cetera. So check that out and stay updated on that by following us at Mimconnect. That's MIM Connect on all social platforms.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Netta. I really appreciate it. Bye.
Bye, y'all.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please make sure to check the show notes to learn more about connecting with our guests. Also, if you haven't done so already, join our Bold in Business community at boldinbusiness.co.